Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is Daily Drop number 181. Today we have an article from the Miami Herald that literally just came out, and this article is taking a trip back down to the Virgin Islands where the battle over Jeffrey Epstein's estate and his fortune is being waged in the courtroom by Denise George, the lawyers for the survivors, and Indike and Khan, the executors of Jeffrey Epstein's estate. Now, we know that it's been a battle royale down there, and we know I've been very critical of Denise George because I don't believe that she should be setting the Virgin Islands up as a so-called victim in this case, when we all know the history of the Virgin Islands, right? I think that if she would just continue to focus on the case and getting justice for the survivors, she'd be setting herself up in a much better position when history judges the case. Unfortunately, there's always, the bigger picture for people like her. She probably has aspirations to run for political office or whatever it may be, so she's going to do whatever she can to try and get some money for the Virgin Islands. And I find that ridiculous. I find it as a slap in the face to the survivors. And I think that all of that money, every last dollar, should go to the girls who were abused by Jeffrey Epstein. So let's see what this article has to say about all of that. Let's see if our opinions change of Miss George. The headline of the article is Judges Asked to Untangle Fight Over Jeffrey Epstein's Fortune. The article is by Kevin G. Hall. Virgin Islands Attorney General Denise N. Rogers, this is a typo in the piece at the Miami Herald here, folks, by the way. It's Denise N. George, not Denise Rogers. So in the article, when you read it, it's going to say Rogers, but when you hear me talk here, I'm going to say George because that's the proper person. It's obviously no big deal for the Herald. It's just a typo. It got out, past the editors, and that just happens sometimes. So we'll just correct it as I read through here. So just be aware if you're going to read the article along with me or afterwards or whatever. Virgin Islands Attorney General Denise N. George declared in court filings Tuesday that she is at an impasse with the estate of disgraced financier, pedophile, Jeffrey Epstein, and asked that a Superior Court judge intervene and end the protection of the late sex offender's associates. Wow, that's a big deal. Maybe this judge will have the courage to do it. Right? Preska hasn't done it. The vaunted SDNY that we hear so much about. Like people like Bahara out there running their mouths about how great the SDNY is and this, that, and the other thing. Meanwhile, there's a trafficking ring running under all of their noses for decades. Not one of them stepped up to the plate. Not one of them has stepped up to do the right thing in this case. So maybe down here in the Virgin Islands, in a place nobody would have ever expected the wheels of justice to catch up to them, maybe this will be the spot. Maybe this will be the spot that justice is served. Can you imagine that pivot? Can you imagine how insane that would be if it wasn't the SDNY, if it wasn't Preska, it wasn't Berman, but it was the people in the Virgin Islands that ultimately unmasked all of these sick bastards that were running with Jeffrey Epstein? Oh boy, that would be something. We do not believe any further progress can be made without the court's intervention, Rogers wrote in a status update filed Tuesday that detailed what the Attorney General felt is deliberate foot-dragging by the Epstein estate on creation of a victims' compensation fund and making witnesses available to local investigators. Yeah, no shit they're dragging their feet. That's their MO. That's the strategy. That's what they've been able to do for the whole entire run of this criminal enterprise because they have long, deep-ass pockets. When the money never runs out, the games never have to stop being played. These people had long-ass pockets, folks. These people were able to make moves that you and I can never even fathom. And doing that, they would stall the courts out, and they would make it costly, not only if it was a private litigation going after them, but if it was the state going after them, costly litigations look bad on the ledger sheet. And I know that shouldn't play a part, but unfortunately in our broken-ass justice system, our broken-ass society, it does. Rogers earlier this year brought a civil enforcement action against the Epstein estate, later adding and labeling as co-conspirators two longtime Epstein attorneys, Richard Kahn and Darren K. Indyke, who in his will updated shortly before his jail cell death by apparent suicide last August 10th, were named executors of the estate. And I talked about our buddy Darren Indyke the other day, and we know that both these guys, Indyke and Kahn, are serious people when it comes to the Jeffrey Epstein organization. We know that these people were highly thought of by Jeffrey Epstein. We know that they were trusted associates, Indyke more than Kahn, but we know that they were trusted associates. How could anyone look at them to take this whole entire thing and act in good faith as far as the survivors are concerned? And furthermore, why should the survivors have to deal with these two ass clowns being involved in this case? We all know that they were Epstein's in-house lawyers. What were their roles in helping Epstein cover all of this up? How much money did they get shuffled into their bank accounts? How many straight-up cash payments that were never even registered went their way? Just asking questions here, folks. Just asking the questions. The Attorney General also filed liens against Epstein estate assets, making it difficult for the estate to pay employees and bills. The estate to pay employees and bills and to sell assets that could ostensibly be used to compensate Epstein survivors. Yeah, I said that too. Why are there shouldn't be any work going on any of these estates. Everything should be hit with a pause. There shouldn't be no cable TV there. You don't need phone service. Maybe keep the electricity on in case you're going to show the property to somebody who's about to buy it when it goes into auction. But as far as these hordes of maintenance crews and people keeping up the lawn, nope, that's over. That should all end. The government should put a cease on that, a desist order on that, and none of that should occur. I will say, when I was in Santa Fe in late February, I did not see any of that sort of thing going on. I didn't see anybody on the property in Zorro Ranch. Not one person. I didn't see cars driving. I didn't see the dust from cars being thrown up from, a car being in motion. None of it. So perhaps her liens were working, right? Perhaps they actually were, having the intended effect. And we know that Kahn and Indyke cried about it. So who knows, man? All I could say is this. None of that money should ever be siphoned off for anybody but these survivors. For the past month, the Epstein estate and the Attorney General have been negotiating a deal to have the liens lifted in exchange for trade-offs. These included the appointment of Marcy Hamilton, a noted advocate for victims of child sex abuse, to the administration of the Compensation Fund. We talked about her as well, and I agreed with Denise George in this regard. Why shouldn't she be appointed? Why shouldn't this lady, who is obviously respected in her field, this is her gig, this is what she does, this is her lane, why should she not be involved? She shouldn't be there to oversee how this compensation gets doled out. She shouldn't be able to have access to what's going on in the as a court-appointed official. She most certainly should. If this lady is capable and she is competent and she is that well thought of by the Attorney General's office, then I don't see the problem for her being involved in this. The setting aside of $50 million for survivors who might opt out of the Voluntary Compensation Fund to pursue separate litigation, and a pledge that no survivor would have to release claims against a third party in exchange for receiving compensation, which is all huge, which I support all of those steps, by the way. I think all of that's a great idea, because just because you're getting a payout from Epstein's estate doesn't mean you shouldn't be able to go after one of his dirty-ass, gross-ass billionaire friends who might have assaulted you. Why should the story stop just with Epstein? That's not enough. That's just more cover for these sick perverts. So I think that's another great move by Denise George. Again, credit where it's due, folks. I'm not here to hatchet job anybody, right? I don't really care one way or the other. When you talk about gray characters in a story, that is me at this point. I am completely gray. Gandalf the Grey, neutral as they come. All I want to see is the whole entire lot of these people face the justice that they deserve at this point. Because it's obvious what they were doing, it's obvious how they conducted themselves, and it's obvious that our government and governments elsewhere overseas turned a blind eye while all of this shit was going on. And it's unacceptable to me. So I think, yeah, all of these things that she's saying here are good. Because one of these girls that were assaulted by Epstein and other people should be able to go after every last person and eviscerate every single person that abused them. That is the only thing that's right. That's the only thing that's just. In documents filed in support of her motion, George included emails from lawyers from the estate that insist survivors forfeit their right to sue others connected to the estate, including property managers, pilots, household servants, drivers, and recruiters of underage girls as a condition of receiving a piece of Epstein's fortune. Are you kidding me right now? There is zero chance that any of that should occur. Every single one of these people that enabled Epstein, that was around when this was occurring and these girls were being abused, should not have any sort of political cover, any sort of cover provided by any NDAs, any of that stuff. They should be able to go after every single person that was involved in them being trafficked. If they want to sue every last person, from the pilot on down to the person who was, making the phone calls, then I say go for it. Let the courts decide. The parties also differ on whether compensated survivors must relinquish the right to sue outside third parties, friends and associates of the multimillionaire. See, again, this all goes back into what I was talking about with Maxwell. When she would come out in the sun and she'd make the remarks that she made, oh, my computer got hacked, or oh, this thing or that thing, or oh, I'm great friends with so-and-so and, they don't want me to talk, whatever it may be. It was all warning shots from her. Firing shots over the bow at Indike and Khan, firing shots over the bow at everybody that was involved with this scheme to let them know that, hey, look, you better still protect me. You better protect me. When you're negotiating these deals, you better protect me, because remember, I hold all the keys to all of the secrets, and I have the maps to where all the bodies are buried. And that was her motivation, firing those shots through Laura Goldman, that useful idiot of hers, her friend that was obviously being manipulated by Maxwell to get these messages out there. So we see how this all works, right? You think it's just a coincidence that Khan and Indike are trying to protect the associates of Epstein still? Epstein's gone. Why should they care? Why should Khan and Indike care? It's because they're still being pressured, folks. Still being pressured by other people that were involved, other powerful people that were involved with Jeffrey Epstein. I don't have evidence of that, right? That the link directly links those things happening, right? I can't point to you the evidence of where I can say, all right, here's exactly where Ghislaine Maxwell is pressuring them. But when you look at the big picture and you start putting the pieces of the puzzle together and in context what's going on and who we're dealing with here, it's quite obvious what she was doing. And we see the end game right now, and we see why there's no movement when it comes to the estate, because they're asking for too much. The ask from Indike and Khan is way too much, and the court is not going to relent. They're not going to give these sort of things to them, because at the end of the day, I think Denise George, I have to tell you, I think Denise George is angling to go after the associates. I think she's really going to try and make a splash here, folks. And if she can just avoid trying to get the money for the Virgin Islands and make sure all of that money goes to the survivors, Denise George can come out of this as a real superstar, right? As a reputation as a prosecutor that takes no shit and's not scared to put her nose where people tell her it doesn't belong in the pursuit of justice, because that's what it'll take here. A prosecutor that has no fear of going up against the most powerful people in the world. We're talking the richest people, politically connected, you name it. And if Denise George is going to go hard after these people, she'll certainly have my support. Among third parties alleged to have participated in sexual misconduct is Great Britain's Prince Andrew, whose ties with Epstein date back to the 1990s. He has denied any inappropriate behavior, but was relieved of royal duties last November after a disastrous television interview in which he showed no empathy for the survivors and offered no explanation for why he was photographed with a woman who said he was forced by Epstein to have sex with the prince 3 times. Yeah, he had no answers for it, and rightly deserved. He rightly deserved the scorn and the scrutiny. He made himself to be the asshole, right? He's making himself out to be the jagoff. All right? Don't blame anybody else when people call you out on your shit, man. It's nobody else's fault when they call you out. It's your fault for being the dirtbag. It's your fault for hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein. Everything else you've brought upon yourself, Mr. Prince of Punk Asses, Mr. Prince of Lies. Intervention by the Superior Court is needed, George argued, because the estate has not negotiated in good faith. Of course they haven't. That's their MO. That's the same thing Prince Andrew is doing. You think they're going to negotiate in good faith? Yeah, right. These people don't know what good faith means. All they know is how to pressure and bully, and try and destroy people on a personal level. That's how they get things done. They're not going to, they're not going to negotiate in good faith. For it to be good faith, you'd have to be dealing with good people. The estate complains of mounting litigation costs, but has prolonged discussions with the government over more than 4 weeks, she wrote. It's unclear how quickly the court will move on the request for intervention. In recent weeks, the settlement of the Epstein estate has been hit by 2 surprise events. First, longtime Epstein associate, co-conspirator, and former girlfriend, co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell, who hasn't been seen publicly since last summer, filed a claim against the estate, asking that it continue paying her legal bills as Epstein had done before his death, and that it cover the costs of her maintaining a lifestyle in hiding because of threats against her life. See what I'm saying here, folks? And the lawsuit is her escalating it 1 step further. You guys better take care of me. Here we go. Here's the next step. Remember, it's all about self-preservation for these people. They're not friendly with anybody. There's no, oh, this is my good friend, I'm going to take it on the sword for them. That's not going to happen with these people. These people don't give a shit about anybody but themselves. And in troubling new developments, one of the most visible Epstein survivors, Virginia Roberts, tweeted a photo of herself Monday at an Australian hospital where she was checked in with symptoms of coronavirus. I'm so scared right now, having trouble breathing, fever, and cough, getting tested for COVID-19, praying it's not positive, she tweeted. As of Tuesday evening in the United States, she provided no update on her status. Yeah, I haven't seen any updates on her status. She hasn't posted anything on Twitter or anything like that. But obviously, we all want Virginia to stay healthy and get better. And hopefully that, she got into the doctors and they're able to, find out what's going on and get her on the road to recovery in a forthright manner. Because, this is the sort of virus, we don't want to see anybody get struck down with a virus like this, right? Especially people who have been through so much. So hopefully she's, on the mend, nothing too serious. And if you don't follow her on Twitter yet, you should definitely be doing that for sure. But so far, she hasn't posted any updates, letting anybody know about what's going on. And you know what? That's her business, right? If and when she wants to let people know what's going on, she'll let them know. But obviously, we hope that she gets better quickly. As for the article itself, I mean, look, there's a lot here, right? A lot to unpack, a lot to digest. The article literally just came out maybe 25, 30 minutes ago, and it's going to be very interesting to see how things unfold down in the Virgin Islands. And we'll see if Denise George comes out of this looking like a hero, or if she just ends up being another bureaucrat that doesn't care about the survivors and is only angling for her own personal gain later on down the road when it comes to elected office. If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. And inside of the description box, you'll find a link to my new podcast, COVID-19, the pandemic that changed everything. All right, folks, I will talk to you all tomorrow morning with a morning update, and we will go from there. Have a fantastic evening, everybody.